Today is June 12th, of course, a day set aside by Nigerian government as Democracy Day. It is a day off for the general population and schools, and most businesses are closed. Since 2000, Nigeria has been celebrating May 29th as Democracy Day. With the election of the General Olusegun Obasanjo retired as the president, May 29, 1999 was the second time in Nigeria's history that an elected civilian administration was restored after the rule of a military junta. The first time this happened was on October 21, 1979. In June 2018, President Buhari shifted Democracy Day to June 12 from 2019. The view of the federal government is that the annulled general election of June 12, 1993 is a more fitting occasion for Democracy Day to represent than the events of May 1999. Now, on June 12, 1993, many millions of Nigerians expressed their democratic will in a general election. The general election was presumed to have been won in a landslide by the standard bearer of the Social Democratic Party, MQ Abiola, who contested against Mamman Tofa of the National Republican Convention. This morning, we'll be taking a look at Nigeria's democratic journey, milestones and setbacks. We'll also be dissecting the president's speech as well. Now, we have in the studio a political scientist, or rather a public affairs commentator, Baba Yusuf, who will be talking to us about the significance of this day, and hopefully having other guests join us on the program subsequently. Thank you so much, Baba Yusuf, for joining us on Daybreak today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, looking at the papers today will say it all. It reflects the mood of the country, Democracy Day today being observed, and a lot of public, or I would say former presidents and politicians who have served in different capacities are churning out statements about what they think about this day. Some of them include Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, who was former head of state. He says today should be used to deepen the gains of Nigeria's democracy. How have we gone so far? Or how have we come so far in terms of Nigeria's democracy, growing to where, Nigerians would desire it to be?
Thank you very much. By the way, I'm a strategist and policy analyst. So far, so good. If we look at it from the perspective of looking at our cups half full rather than half empty, this is the 7th general election after the return to democracy in the 4th Republic, 7th election. And that tells us the kind of trajectory, how we are evolving. 23 years uninterrupted democracy after the intermittent interruptions by the military. And we have been having seamless handover from one government or one administration to the other. So I will say so far so good. I know also there are rooms for improvement with regards to the electoral process itself, with regards to the style of governance, at federal and subnational levels. Issues about accountability, about transparency, about fight against corruption, which is more or less a mantra rather than a reality for us in the country, which is the biggest setback in the history of our democracy. Maybe because we are not looking at corruption from the right perspective. We see corruption, all of us sit down and see corruption as a they issue rather than a we issue. It's a national malaise. It's a cultural, deeply cultural, national cultural issue that transcends any strata. So far so good, albeit corruption has been holding us back and the other factors I have mentioned. But looking at the brighter side, when we compare our country with other nations, when you do a review, because we have a problem with our review mechanisms, we like comparing, rather than comparing apples to apples, we like comparing, apples with oranges. For example, anytime you hear politicians, policy analysts, even Nigerians talking, you model or you rate your country's progress in politics, political evolution with the likes of the United States of America, the United Kingdom, forgetting that these people started the journey centuries before we started. Okay? So while we are looking at them to role model our democracy or model our democracy, it is important for us to also appreciate where we are at this moment. If we want to do that comparison to say, where was the United States of America when it was 23 years, you know, into the Union, for example? Or go back to the time of George Washington and say, how did they fare 23 years after the fact? We forget they have gone through a tumultuous civil war. They've gone through so many crises, you know, to become what they are.
Okay.
So far, so good, I must say. But then again, it is important for us to look at issues that we need to deal with as a nation.
So in terms of dividends of democracy, in terms of improving the lives of Nigerians, how better has this democratic dispensation done compared to the military administration? Because when people make a lot of comparisons, they talk about how, you know, in the 70s and in the 80s, things were far better than they are right now. So if you put that side by side, to what extent has democracy really impacted on the lives of ordinary Nigerians?
You are very correct, Ayuba. We do the progress of what I call in our place, we have a proverb of the progress of well digger. You ask the well digger how far, he will tell you we are making progress, but he's going deeper into the well. The truth is, it is very true that we keep on seeing our yesterday as better than today. But look at it this way. You cannot eat your cake and have it. I'm not making excuses for the democratic process or the evolution. But much as we have some milestone achieved during the military era, at the same time, we are the same people that said we wanted freedom. At the same time, we are saying we wanted liberty. We wanted the decision to choose our leaders. And that is priceless. So if that is priceless, comparing to the delivery of dividends of leadership, not democracy in terms of the military, all right? Are we saying that we should go back to that era where we didn't have the liberty and the freedom of democracy? So it depends on where you want to sit. Now, to my mind, if we want to be front-facing and say, what have we gained? The choice to choose our leaders is what we have gained. And if that is the case, why have we not gotten those dividends of democracies we believe we should have for choosing our leaders?
You know, Baba Yusuf, that too is arguable. Stella, I know you are itchy, but that too is arguable. People will say, well, do we really choose our leaders looking at the electoral process?
Well, you see, bottom line is this. Like I said, we are evolving. And for all, I just mentioned the 7th general election. And the last time I checked, you and I and Madam are all Nigerians. We are human beings that have blood running in our veins. If things get to a certain point, I don't believe Nigerians will sit down and be led by the nose just because an electoral process is flawed. So I want to believe that largely, Nigerians have made their choices. Albeit there are issues, for example, in 2007 when an elected president came to say the process was very bad. But as a nation, we also understand that the process of nation building is not a short dash. The process of nation building is a long haul. And it involves trying and failing and making mistakes. But what is critical is understanding we have made mistakes, not just for the leaders, for as a people, and changing. What do I mean? If we say there was no election, or we say the leaders that we want did not manifest. Why? Because we collect money and choose those people. So why haven't we changed our mindset as a people? You know, the narration about we need to be led in a way to do some things, I think is insulting. We are insulting ourselves to say that, because we need to know that something is wrong and we need to do something to change that. And I'm talking about the middle class now, who now have come into the foray, as we have seen in 2003, and it has shown in the numbers of how President Tinubu emerged, albeit he confessed today that it was a very intensely fought election. So by and large, we are all evolving. We are becoming more conscious. So the people now should understand their powers of voting and indeed powers of pushing to get things done. But I want to believe that the journey so far is good. The number of people that are dying during electoral process is reducing. The number of people that are, you know, taking actions that are negative to the impact of our political process is reducing.
All right, Mr. Yusuf, you know, one of the things that democracy gave us was the freedom, the right to choose our leaders.
Absolutely.
Now, in 1999, we had a certain figure. In 2003, it went up. Now, in 2023, the number of voters declined significantly. So are Nigerians becoming disillusioned with the whole concept of democracy, or what's going on? Because I mean, if you have that kind of right, that kind of, it's something you should cherish and want to, you know, use. So why is our case like this?
On one part, there is voter apathy because people are losing confidence in the leadership and the process. That is true. But also largely, if you look at the number of people that went to register to vote in the 2023 general elections, unprecedented, almost 100 million people registered to vote. After it was filtered, it still scaled down to not less than 70 million. Okay? But what played out is not just on a function of people's apathy wholly, but we know the country was facing the vagaries of insecurity. We know the country was facing the vagaries of economic downturn. And it was exacerbated by those, impulsive policies, that was brought about at the wee hour of our electoral process by the CBN governor, that threw a spanner in the wheel of progress of the entire electoral process. Logistics issues, people couldn't move from one place to another. So it's a culmination of issues for us in 2023. Because if we look at the number of people that turned out to register, that were ab initio not in the voters register, compared to the people that came out, with those realities that I have mentioned, I want to believe that it is largely due to those issues and more or less due to the apathy. Now let's talk about apathy with regards to the outcome after the presidential elections. Because of the process that was flawed, which is still a work in progress, INEC dropped the ball, with regards to the promise they made to the people to deliver electoral process driving with technology. People felt, well, if this is what happened at the presidential level, maybe we should not go out again. And that played out at the gubernatorial level, But that being said, it is also for me an expression by the people that we are not happy with this process. Something needs to be done. Why do I say so? President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a winner. But I tell you, he sweated it out this time, over and beyond other presidential candidates. And as a political realist, he knows. And the other people that have gone to court to challenges, are doing it in a way, a manner that shows the level of political consciousness of our people. So to that extent, people are waking up to their responsibilities. Critical stakeholders are understanding that they all have roles to play in ensuring that not just the electoral process, but when people are in the office, they hold them to account, they ensure the right things are done.
How can we better ensure that freedom in a democracy? We talk about the right to choose our leaders, which is a fundamental principle of this democracy.
Yes.
Looking at the 2023 general elections,
yes,
a key factor that played out is voter suppression and intimidation,
yes,
that we have seen in other parts of the country.
Absolutely.
And in that regard, our security has a role to play.
Yes.
But we find ourselves in a situation where there's a seeming compromise,
yes,
on the part of our security personnel when, during elections. And how can we, ensure that people's rights to, to vote and their vote to count is safeguarded?
Very good question. Now, for that to happen, it's one of the litmus tests for this dispensation. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the parliament that will be inaugurated tomorrow need to demonstrate that they really respect the feelings of Nigerians, and they want to leave one of the critical marks they want to leave behind, especially President Tinubu, is ensure that next elections people's votes count. This collusion or seeming collusion by the security agencies or security forces in elections is not new to us. It has been with us for a very long time. The worrisome part of it is not declining, it is increasing. Use of statecraft, especially by incumbents, and this case is not only the presidency, even you see governors in their states marshalling resources of security to intimidate. The issue of voter intimidation and vote buying is also not a national issue, it's even at the subnational levels. And in this case, I will call it a collusion, an unholy collusion between the leaders and the led. The citizens themselves are part of the issue. You have suffered under a member of House of Rep or senator or a president for donkey years, but because of parochial interest, because of ethnicity, because of tribalism, you do not even have the morality, the moral grounding to say, even though this person professes the same religion I profess with him, even though this person is from the same geopolitical zone as I am, we need to tell this person he's doing wrong. We need to hold this person to account. We need to take that. You are wasting our chance, because most likely before the presidency comes to our side, we may not have been able to say our person has done something well. Because the people have that voice and have that strength. Right. How they use it is what matters. The political class understand we are like potty or clay in their hands, even though God has given us the same senses, the same sensitivities like these politicians. So while we also know that the political class manipulate this, we have decided to be tools in the hands of the politicians. This voter intimidation and violence is all over Nigeria. For those that I say it happened in Lagos, it's all over the country. And all the political actors are guilty. It is a function of who is more guilty than the other. Indeed, political manipulation cannot happen by only the political actors on the leadership side. It is happening because there's a society that is corrupt. There's a people that are that have decided to agree that they are divided along some parochial lines. Meanwhile, we forget that we go to the same market. There's no market for Muslim, market for Christians. When you go to the hospital, it is the same situation. And ignorance and poverty does not have connotations of colorations of ethnicity. When we realize that as a people, then the progress will happen.
In fact,
the leaders will do the most they can, but they can only make impact when the people, want to go a particular way. Give you an example. Go to a traffic junction and the traffic light is not working, and you have a yellow fever or a traffic warden, controlling the traffic. Have you seen what happens during rush hour? The traffic warden will be overwhelmed by the people he's trying to control. And when it gets to a point, you've seen many times the traffic warden will just walk away in frustration when you juxtapose it.
Or just stand by and just watch.
And when you flip it now, leaders and led, this is what happens in Nigeria. So when, like I said in my opening remarks, we need to dimension the issue of Nigeria from a we perspectives rather from a they perspectives. Because whether we like it or not, someday, sometime, you are a leader, I am a leader, and you are a leader as well.
And talking about looking at it from a we perspective, when I look at some of the statements that have been issued on the Democracy Day, I've seen lots of politicians saying, we haven't learnt anything. We haven't deepened democracy. And I'm asking myself, who are those to deepen this democracy? These people issuing these statements, I'm wondering. But that aside, there's the issue of internal democracy. You have talked about Nigerians choosing who they want and all of that. But then, sometimes, even the choices that Nigerians are left with, sometimes they are left with...
Least much to be desired.
It leaves much to be desired, because at the party level, there's no internal democracy. So to what extent does that affect the democracy of the country, generally?
Still goes back to what I said. A party is a subset of a society, ladies and gentlemen. The people in the political parties are Nigerians, not Ghanaians, not Togolese, not Britons. They are Nigerians like us. So the parties are actually, smaller models of what Nigeria is. So you don't even need to look at the presidency or the governors. If you know how Nigeria operates, just look at the political parties. And that is the worrisome part of it. We need to look at it from that perspective. And because the political leaders understand these mechanics, they use those as levers. The total lack of internal democracy is not something that happens at the national level. If you are very conversant with politics, which is very simple, just go back to your constituency and see how they are doing, how it is done even at councillorship stage. The parochialism, the corruption, the lack of internal democracy starts from that level. And then when the foundation is faulty and the pillars are shaky, there is no how the superstructure will endure, right? So I still believe it's a societal issue that is manifesting in the lack of internal politics in the political party, lack of good governance at that top level, because in the country, there is no consequences for actions. I'm not talking about now the leadership of the country from the context of political leadership. There's no consequences for our actions, even in our homes, even in our communities. Everything goes in Nigeria, and yet we want saints and angels to lead us. Right? We are not ready to take responsibilities at various cadre of leadership. And that is why you see this lack of internal democracy. So you end up sitting down. I'm sorry to say, sometimes you look at the entire candidates that come out for a particular office across all the parties, and you start biting your fingers. Who amongst these should I even choose?
Baba Yusuf, how significant is the role of unity in shaping our democracy? So these days, because of social media, technology, we have fifth columnists playing major roles in shaping narratives around politics in Nigeria, and sometimes they can be very divisive in their nature. And politicians have taken it a notch higher. In some states, for instance, in Lagos, recently we heard about the State Assembly making laws about indigenes and the rest of that. That generated a lot of controversy. And Lagos, in specific, in the last election, was looked at as a state that generated a lot of controversy around our elections. The whole issue about indigenes, Yorubas, Igbos, and the rest, certain narratives that have now, come to play in our politics. How significant are those in fostering unity, and which will definitely have impact on our democracy?
Unity, to my mind, is a manifestation or function of the perception of fairness, equity, and justice, of a perception of mutual respect for each other. That is what culminates into unity. When there is no fairness, when there is no justice, or a perception of it, then this unity will not hold. You cannot force unity. It has to manifest naturally based on these parameters. Use Lagos as an example. Lagos, because it is a model of a highly cosmopolitan city. So it is more evident in Lagos. But I tell you, it is worse in some other parts of this country. It is more cosmopolitan, and the interests are high as the economic hub of West Africa. And they say where there is wealth, the crisis will manifest more. It is more worrisome for me, even subnationals that are not so prominent. It is so bad even in our societies. Within a kindred, you see divisions, dogmas, Ayuba, madam, along lines of ethnicity. Within communities, whether it is in the northwest or it is in the southeast, there are parts of this country today, in Lagos, we are now seeing them doing this lot. But whether we like it or not, no matter what part of the country you come from, people prosper in Lagos. People can own land. People can own properties. People can run businesses. There are parts of this country today that you cannot even own a parcel of land, so long as you are not from part of that country. Let's not be hypocritical about this. If we want Nigeria to be better, then we need to stop being hypocritical as citizens. We need to eyeball ourselves and say what is the truth. So I'm not making excuses for Lagos, but this is the reality. There are states in Nigeria I can't go now and open a shop to sell granite. I will live there within 1 week. They will frustrate me out of that place because maybe I'm from northern Nigeria, I'm a Hausa man. Conversely, the same thing. And there are places in Nigeria, they are not Lagos, but they are so hospitable and they accommodate people. And people have been there for centuries. But when issues of politics start, you see people insulting those people that have been accommodating them for centuries. So I think this unity issue should also start from us. Let us step back a bit and ask ourselves, when did these serious dogmas expand to the national level? Because they've been there. In some part of the country, the concept of the slave and the owner has been there. In whatever state you look at, that concept of these people are our slaves. We are their oga, or we are majority. This one, in this country, we still use this word that I look forward to in Nigeria, where I will stop hearing majority, minority. We still discuss it in our parliament, in our political discourse.
As a matter of fact,
unity to
it's
happen.
forming the basis for the zoning arrangements that we hear about.
We are hearing zoning.
So
if you go to Rwanda,
example in the National Assembly,
I give you an example. In Rwanda, I have a friend in Rwanda, and the first time I engaged this my friend, I met the person, and I felt I was being cosmopolitan, and I said, are you Hutu or Tutsi? And the person blanched and said, Hutu or Tutsi? And whispered, no, we don't discuss Hutu. It's an offense. Really? Yes. Here we are Rwandese. There's no Hutu, there's no Tutsi. You don't say that out there. And I cannot tell you whether till today, I don't know whether that person is Hutu or Tutsi. Believe me.
What's your take on the leadership tussle of the National Assembly and how that too is either entrenching democracy or not? What do you make of what's happening there?
It's a very interesting topic. And people are misunderstanding the dynamics of parliament. Let us take back a bit. Let me borrow the heart of historians and strategies of leadership and power. Without wanting to be derogatory, with all due respect to parliaments because of how important they are, parliaments are houses of treachery, not on the negative side, political strategy and maneuvers, because they are critical to democracy and they are critical to governance, to anybody that wants to lead. And therefore, this notion of when a president has an interest who manifests or who becomes the leader of a legislature is not being democratic, I think we should dissipate it. I give you an example. If we are talking about latter-day democracy like ours, where we are today, you don't see that rancor in the American system because many people don't know that or forget that. The Senate president in America by default is the vice president of America. So does it mean it's rubber stamp Senate? House, Parliament? Because by default, the vice president is the Senate president. So now take a bit of a step back and say, what if it is not so? It is thrown to the open. Wouldn't the president be interested in who leads the Senate? You can see what is happening between the Republicans and the Democrats. They are at daggers drawn. You see the serious fight of supremacy that is even impacting on their polity. Indeed, at a point in time, due to their political maturity, you see them crossing party lines to deal with some critical national issues. But the serious hot trading that happens shows you. But indeed, when you leave the Senate presidency and go to the speakership, if the party that wins at the top is the party that has majority, the president has a role to play on who becomes the speaker, not by imposition, by engagement, by lobbying. We know how McCarthy emerged as a speaker presently, even though they are not the ruling party at the moment. But Donald Trump, as the leader of the party, had a role to play with regards to who emerged. But because they are more mature, we see less of the rancor outwardly, and they are able to sit and agree and have what you call a consensus. Consensus is a word and is a reality in politics, and consensus is an outcome of engagement. Now let's come to our situation. The issue with regards to zoning, I think that's where we are heading to or not. The president or prime minister wants to know who wants to lead or who are the principal officers for ease of governance. Because you see, opposition politics in Nigeria, especially and involved, even in a mature politics, it can be rancorous. We see Republicans and Democrats. We see in UK, the ruling party has a highest turnover of prime ministers in the last 5-6 years. This is how important the parliament is. And because of that, you see all these maneuvers and counter-maneuvers. And the interest is high. Therefore, it is only in the British system that you have this semblance of arm's length position by the monarchy, who is more or less like the president to stay away. But I tell you, subliminally, they are very interested in who runs that parliament. The same thing happens. The good thing about this particular scenario is the president did not apply the strategy of domination or imposition. The president applied the strategy of sensing and influencing. He has been engaging critical stakeholders. He has been holding the hands of the key contenders, trying to sway them to what he believes should be the kind of parliament that should run this dispensation.
Right.
There is nothing wrong with that. I believe it's not an imposition.
All right, we'll see how that turns out tomorrow. The president said something. He talked about people who lose election, that if you lose today, there's a chance you could win tomorrow, and then if you win today, there's a chance you could lose tomorrow. And so talk about litigations and its impact on our democracy. I mean, this year alone, we saw a very high number of people going to court to challenge the elections.
Yes.
Does that affect, have any impact on our democracy?
First of all, it has a positive impact because it means that there is a room to exhale. People are bottled up. People have feelings. People believe, some of the beliefs are true, that they have been robbed of the mandate. Some people believe, and it is a perception, that they have been robbed of the mandate. Now, the opportunity to go and prove your case in a court of law is an opportunity to exhale and to demonstrate that you are a citizen and your rights are recognized for you to exercise your rights and to seek for redress in a court of law. That is very critical for our political evolution. And like you said, the number of litigation is more now because of it's a highly contested election from national to subnational. The political consciousness is very high. So even people that won this time around all knew that they won, it was a hardly fought, victory for those that won genuinely. Yeah. And for those that know that they didn't win genuinely, I tell you, they sweat in their rooms. They know that anything can happen. So the judiciary, the litigation is very key. But what is important for us now is to see how the judiciary lives up to the expectations of Nigerians. Because the recent outcomes of some of the judicial pronouncements, to be honest, leaves most to be desired. And a critical stakeholder and a critical success factor in the growth and the progress of democracy in Nigeria is the judiciary. If they are in cahoots with the vested interests, then we have a problem, because people will go to court, spend donkey years, and will not get fairness, will not get equity, or a perception of it.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, thank you so much, Baba Yusuf, for joining us. I think it's a good place for us to end the discussion for today. We appreciate, and happy Democracy Day once again.
Happy Democracy Day. Thank you for inviting me.